Last night you probably dreamed. Maybe it was strange. Maybe it was vivid. Maybe, and this is the one that stays with you, you dreamed about someone who is no longer here, someone you lost, and for just a few seconds after waking, they were alive again. That feeling, that specific gut punch moment of realizing it was just a dream, has been felt by every human being who has ever lived for 300,000 years. And our ancestors did not think it was random. They thought it was a message. Science is starting to think they were not entirely wrong. To understand how ancient humans saw dreams, you have to understand how they saw death. To a Paleolithic hunter 50,000 years ago, death was not an ending. It was a transition. When someone died, their body stopped, but their presence did not. They appeared in dreams, they spoke, they warned, they guided. This was not metaphor. This was not poetry. To ancient humans, this was literal reality. The dream world was simply another world, one that existed alongside the waking world, equally real, equally valid. Shamans across every ancient culture were essentially professional dream interpreters. They were the bridge between the living and the dead. When a hunter needed to know where the animals were, he slept. When a tribe needed guidance after losing their leader, they slept. The answers came from the dead, through dreams. This belief was not isolated to one culture or one continent. It appeared independently in Siberia, Africa, the Americas, and Australia. Every ancient human civilization on Earth came to the same conclusion independently. Dreams were the voice of the dead. And they left evidence. The Sungir burial in Russia 50,000 years ago. A man buried with 3,000 hand-carved mammoth ivory beads and fox canine teeth. Someone spent months preparing that grave. Why would you do that unless you genuinely believed that person was going somewhere? That they would need those things? That you might see them again? At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, Neanderthals, not even modern humans, buried their dead with flowers. Pollen analysis shows grape hyacinth, bachelor's button, and groundsel carefully placed around the body. Either that is one of the most tender gestures in the history of life on Earth, or we are misreading it entirely. Most archaeologists believe it is the former, and then there is the art. Deep in the caves of France and Spain, our ancestors painted figures that were half human and half animal. These were not decorations. These were the dead, transformed, powerful, watching over the living. The boundary between the living and the dead was not a wall. It was a doorway, and dreams were the key. The shaman was the most important person in any ancient community. Not the strongest hunter, not the wisest elder. The shaman, because the shaman could cross the doorway. Through trance states, drumming, fasting, and plant medicines, shamans deliberately induced altered states of consciousness to enter the dream world while still awake. They called it many things. The spirit journey, the vision quest, walking between worlds. But what they were describing was a neurological experience that modern science can now actually measure. When the brain enters deep trance or REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and rational thought, goes quiet. And the limbic system, the ancient emotional brain, takes over completely. This is the part of your brain that was fully formed long before language existed, long before civilization, long before religion. It is the part of your brain that still believes, on some deep, wordless level, that the dead are not entirely gone. The shamans did not discover something supernatural, they discovered something neurological, and they built entire belief systems around it. Here's where it gets interesting. In 2014, a study published in the American Journal of Hospice and Palliative Medicine found that 88% of terminally ill patients reported vivid dreams or visions of deceased loved ones in their final days. Not hallucinations, not confusion. Dreams, and almost universally, those patients described them as comforting, as real, as meaningful. A separate field of research called continuing bonds theory, developed by psychologists Klass, Silverman, and Nickman in 1996, found that maintaining a psychological connection to the deceased is not a sign of unhealthy grief. It is normal, it is healthy, it is human. Your brain does not want to let go of the people it loves. Not because it is broken, because it was built that way. That instinct, that refusal to accept that someone is simply gone, is not a modern weakness. It is 300,000 years old. The ancient humans who buried their dead with flowers and beads and offerings were not being irrational. They were being deeply, profoundly human, just like you. So, Think about the last time you dreamed about someone you lost. That moment when they were there again, fully present, alive in the way only dreams can make someone alive. Ancient humans would not have called that random brain activity. They would have called it a visit. And here's the thing that modern neuroscience cannot fully explain: why those specific dreams feel different, not random, not jumbled like most dreams, clear, intentional, emotionally precise in a way that normal dreams almost never are. Researchers call them visitation dreams, and they remain one of the most reported and least understood experiences in all of sleep science. Ancient humans had a name for it. We are still looking for one. We have traded cave paintings for neuroscience. We have traded shamans for therapists. We have traded the spirit world for sleep studies. But on the night you dream about someone you have lost and you wake up and for just 1 second they are still here, you are not a modern person having a random dream. You are 300,000 years old, and so are they.